Hello everyone, I'm Sijas from Coding with Sijas and welcome to another video. This is the 10th video in the UI5 series. If you're coming to this channel for the first time, do consider subscribing this channel. And if this is the first video in the series, you can click this link to access the entire playlist. That way, you will have a better understanding what we have done until now and continue this journey with this video. Today, we will be learning about shell, nested views, fragments, and dialogues. So let's jump directly into coding and see what a shell is. So in the last video, we have seen about manifest.json. So I have moved the code from the last video into another folder called manifest and pushed into the GitHub. You can access the GitHub from the link in the description. Now, shell is nothing but another container which gives you access to some of the functionalities like changing the logo, giving a background for your application, also give access to login logout APIs. So let's see how to create a shell. The shell takes an application or a split app as its child. So we have to wrap our app inside a shell. So for that, I'll go here and create a shell. And I'll close the shell. With this, we have made our application inside a shell. So what benefit do we get by putting into a shell? So let's go here and refresh the application. So you see here, now your application looks a bit different. You have something called a letterbox layout, which handles your responsiveness. Imagine you are in a different browser or a different window with a smaller screen size. Let me demonstrate it by changing the layout size. So here I clicked on the toggle device toolbar and I'm selecting a normal iPad Pro. And you can see here, there is no letterboxing and our UI fits exactly to the screen. Now, once I changed into a browser window where now you see here, I don't have any responsiveness and I'm reducing the size. So as you see, as soon as I am reducing the size, there is a certain letterboxing coming, which ensures that your application window is no more exceeding a limited size and remaining area is having a different background. So this is one benefit of using a shell, and it also encapsulates our application properly. So what are the other APIs which a shell provides? So here I'll go and create a new folder under web app and let me call it as resource. And I'll paste 2 files into it. So this I'll rename it as BG, which stands for background. And another I have here, I'm renaming it as logo. So let me go and add a background image. Nothing but resources /bg.jpg. So with this, let me go and refresh. It's resource /bg.jpg. And you see here, the background is refreshed with a new background, which is coming from the bg.jpg. Also, I need a logo. So again, I give it /resource/logo.png. So I go here and I'll refresh it. You can see here now our application have a logo and a background color. So this is how you can customize your application based on your customer needs. This is what simply a shell is. You can further understand more about shell using the demo kit. Now let's talk about nested views. So what is a nested view? Nested view is a way of encapsulating a part of your application as a separate view which has its own logic. So let's see an example of it. So first, I'll go and create a new view under view folder. Let me call it as second view dot view dot XML. And I also need a controller, which is second view dot controller dot JS. So for the view, I need the namespacing, which I'll copy from here. I'll exactly copy the MVC view. The only thing I need to change is the name of the controller. Now you have the second view dot XML, and now we'll go and add the code for the second view controller. I'll open landing page here. I'll just get an instance of SAP define, and I paste here and I end it. All I need is SAP/UI/core/MVC/controller. So I'll copy this. And let me get the function which takes multiple parameters, where controller being one of the parameter. Now I'll just copy even this part. And that's it. That's my controller. So let's see whether it works. So for that, let me go and update the root view as second view. And I'll go back and refresh the application. Let's see if we have any errors. Okay. Let me go to the info tab. Let me go to the console and let me refresh. Cool. Now we have our view loaded. So let me get something inside it. I'll get a panel. I'll copy the content from the first view. I'll get both of this cut from here and I'll put it in the second view. And let me go and refresh. I have my hello and show message over here. So since we know that it's working now, all we need to do is change the logic for this. So I'll bring a panel, close the panel. I'll add a button with text. So I'll open the i18, add a text which calls button text. So from the binding, i18 and button text. So once it is refreshed, I have a show message now here. So I'll bring an input. Type as text with refresh, I should get an input. And that's it. So this is my new view. So let me go to manifest and revert the code here to show landing page, which now does not have anything in it. It's only manifest explanation. I can go here and rename this as shell nested views fragment and dialog. So now, as the title is changed, let me go and change the content of the second view. So I've added this. Now in the controller, I can add a method, show some message on press event. I can give on press event handler. I go second to second view and I can simply show a message toast, which I load from sap/m/message toast. I'll get the message toast instance and message toast.show, and I'll show the message test message. So I have the logic also written now. Let me go to landing view or landing page view, and I'll add an XML view here, which is coming from MVC. So MVC XML view. I'll self close this. So what is the next property? We have to give a view name, which is nothing but dot Sijas dot UI5 dot app dot view dot second view. As soon as I give this, I can go here and refresh, and my view should be loaded over here. So when I click on show message, it should show the message as well. So I'll just go here, go to second view. I have the on press event handler. I'll go to the second, I'll save it, and I have the button with on press event on that. So let me go to sources, and I'll load the second view controller, put a debug point here, and click on show message. Now it's being called and the message is shown. So this way you will be able to nest the views. So now you can write your independent logic inside your second view controller, and you can have multiple views which will be showing all the information, and it can have its own logic. Now let's talk what is fragment. Fragment is kind of a reusable part of an application. For example, I have a huge view. For example, here we have a page. So I want something inside this page, and that's going to increase my, let's say, the view size. So what I'll do is, for example, I'll just go to my archive, and let's take an example of the tables which we used. So the table was in So we have a table. So I'll just pick up the table from here, which we had in the last example or last one of the training. So I'll bring the table over here. So I'll come here, I'll refresh, and you see that I have a table here. So as you know that this has increased my size of my view here. So what I can do is I can actually make it separate from this view and embed it inside it, but I don't want it has to have a separate logic, or I don't want that to be a separate view. So in this case, I can create something called fragment. So how do I create a fragment? First, let me create a fragment folder, which is a proper guideline. So I'll create something called employee table dot fragment dot xml, and here I have to use something called fragment definition. So for that, first I have to define fragment definition, which is coming from xmlns core, which is sap.ui.core. So once I do this, you know that we have to use the same namespace, because fragment definition is from the namespace core, and we will close it. We will close the fragment definition. So we have used the fragment definition. So I need to specify the default namespace, which is sap.m, and I'll cut the table from there and put it in my employee table. I'll go ahead and refresh. It still shows the table because I haven't saved it. Once I save it, I'll come back here and I'll refresh, and I see that the table is no more here. So let me bring the table using fragment. So for that, I have to use core fragment. Okay, now core is not defined, so I have to define it. I'll just copy this and call it core and use that. So first thing, I need to give the type, which is XML. Fragment XML, and we need to give a fragment name. That is nothing but in dot Sijas dot app dot UI5 dot app dot fragment folder dot employee table. We close it. I'll go back and refresh, and I have the table also appearing back. So this is how we create a fragment. Now let's talk about dialogues. For that, I'll create a new fragment. Use the same fragment definition. Inside this, I'll create a dialog instance. So let's go and use the dialog fragment. So for that, first I'll go to second view. Here we have a button text. So I'll create a new button text from the i18n. Open btn text dialog. So it's a new key which doesn't exist yet, and I'll need to create a method for dot open dialog. So this is the two things. So if I go to my browser and refresh, you see here it shows a third button. For that, text doesn't exist. So we go to i18n and we add a new text, button text dialog. I hope correct. And the message is show dialog. So with that, our text should be reflected, and btn text txt. Yep, perfect. Now let's go to controller of second view and add our new method on on open dialog. Is another function. It's instantiated over here. So since we want to load a fragment, we need to load an instance of that. So it's sap/ui/core/fragment, and I use it over here. Now we need to load a fragment. The first thing, we don't have this dialog created yet, so I check this .o dialog. If this dialog doesn't exist, we need to load it. So for that, all I need to use is this .dialog equal to this .load fragment. So load fragment is a method available in controller. So for that, let's open UI5 Explorer, put API reference. You see controller under MVC. So let me just choose mvc.controller, and in the methods you will be able to find load fragment method. So load fragment is used to load a fragment. So load fragment takes what as a parameter? So that takes name as parameter. So name is nothing but the name of the fragment, which we can use as in.sijas.ui5.app.fragment.dialog. This is the name. So once the dialog is loaded, it will be instantiated. So if you see here, it is instantiated as soon as you pass the fragment name, and once it is loaded, it will be stored in this .dialog. Now all you need to do is to open the dialog. So this .dialog, we just need to call .open. But will it call directly? No, because load fragment returns a promise. So we just need to do .then, which will be a function which will give you an instance of dialog. So we call it as ODialog, and we can call it ODialog.open. Open. I'll close this. I'll format it. Let me go back to my browser and refresh, and I click on show dialog. I get an empty dialog. So what does the API to enhance a dialog? So for that, all you need to do here is go to m.dialog. So in the aggregation, you see there are some aggregations for buttons, content, and in the properties we see there is a property for icon, title, etc. So let's go and create few I18 in text. Let me call it as dialog title, and it is new dialog, and we need a button. So button close, We call it as close. So these two things. So first, let me copy this, come to the dialog fragment, give a title from i18n. Right. So let's see what happens with this. So you see here, it comes new dialog title. Let me go to i18n again and give a proper name. It's new dialog title. So I need, next thing is I need to give an end button. So I'll use the aggregation end button aggregation. And I have to create a button there with text i18n btn close. I've got a close button. Now let's add a message to it. So I'll bring the code. So in the content aggregation, I'll add a message. So for that, I'll use a text field and bind it to the i18n. Content message. I'll copy this, save it. We are the browser, refreshing it. Click on show dialog. It shows the content message. I'll close the code. I'll come here. I'll go to i18n. I'll add content message equal to this is the message shown in the dialog. Save it. We'll go back here. I'll refresh it. Click on show dialog. And this is message is shown here. But if you see here, this is sticking towards the, to the edge of the dialog. So we have to provide some content padding. So for that, we will use the padding class from the UI5 SDK. So for that, you can go to documentation and search padding. So in the content padding, you see there is something called responsive content padding. So I'll go back to my dialog, to the dialog. Let me just format it once. Yeah. To this, I'll add the class responsive padding. So I'll go back here. I'll go to UI5 model and binding, and I'll refresh it. And click on show message, which will open the message with enough padding. So when I click on close, I want this function to be closed. So for that, all I need to do is to this, I'll create an event. Let me call it dot close dialog. So I'll go to my second view controller, add a new method, close dialog. Yep. And same thing I'll use here, that if it doesn't exist, instead of open, I just need to close it. So come here, I'll refresh this. Yeah, click on show dialog, which opens the dialog, and click on close, we'll close it. And that's it about dialogs. So today we have learned about shell and how to create an application using shell and how to apply the background color and icon. Also, we have seen how to create nested views and how to embed a nested view in an existing view. We have seen how to contain or how to wrap existing UI controls into something called fragment, and how to create a dialog using a fragment and close and open the dialogs. So guys, I hope I'm very clear with these things. If you have any questions, do post comment and I'll try to answer as much as possible. See you guys in the next video.